Fox News alert, the president's advocacy group Organizing for Action goes on defense after calls for it to be shut down, calls by liberal groups for this thing to be shut down because of accusations that it is selling access to our president. Welcome to America Live, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. Moments ago, a new statement from the group that is led by President Obama's former campaign manager, Jim Messina. Organizing for Action is now denying that it is granting presidential meetings to the highest bidder. Remember, the New York Times had an article this weekend saying you can get 4 meetings a year, quarterly meetings with the president for the low, low price of $500,000 to the group that is charged with pushing forward his agenda, Organizing for Action. A spokeswoman for the group reportedly saying, quote, supporters have shown interest in taking part because they believe in the president's agenda. No one has been promised access to the president. Chris Stirewalt is our Fox News digital politics editor and host of Power Play on foxnews.com live. I mean, so the New York Times is just completely wrong. No one's actually saying that, no one's actually denying the true substance of the report. I mean, even Jay Carney the other day said, no, they don't allow, money to be exchanged for access to the president. But the president routinely meets with those who support his agenda. I mean, what is the takeaway here?
Well, yes, the takeaway is that you will not be asked to produce a brown paper bag with $500,000 in it as you approach the White House gates. So, yes, you can say that you're not making a transaction for access to the president. But the reason that groups on the left are starting to have some concerns about this is because they can see into the future, Megyn. And though they might agree with much of what the president's agenda does, let's take a look into the past. What if Karl Rove or Ken Mehlman, the president's campaign manager in 2004, George W. Bush's campaign manager, had said, you know what, we're not going to really turn off the campaign. We're going to keep raising money to help the president get what he wants, and we're going to keep raising money in order to try to win midterm elections so that we can do the things we want. And then if they said, and by the way, the presidents of Exxon and Halliburton and the Koch brothers and the NRA were all invited to come throw into the kitty to try to get ahead, and maybe they'll get to meet with the president to talk about it. I don't think you would just be hearing 1 or 2 groups screaming about this. It would be a panic. It would be a panic rippling through the Washington press corps.
And yet there's no such panic emerging today.
No.
There is a leading group, Common Cause, which tends to object to this kind of thing. They don't like to see, pay for play, money for access in presidential politics. And they've complained when Republicans have done it, and now they're complaining, to their credit, when a liberal president is doing it. By the way, they're here live today. The president of that group is going to be here live with me in an hour. But they are saying that this is a blatant pay for access situation, and saying you may love it now if you're on the left, and as you point out, Chris, you may feel very differently if we wind up with the President Rubio, say.
Yeah, obviously, and this is where blinkered press coverage can come back to bite folks, because so many political reporters think that things like green energy subsidies or electric cars or the Hollywood entertainment industry, these things are good. They're either benign or helpful. They don't get as concerned as they do when it's the groups on the right. If it's an oil company, or if it's a libertarian group, or if it's a Christian conservative group, they get very anxious about those things because they don't line up with their own ideology. When it's their own ideology, they don't get so concerned. But the consequences still come later.
The thing is, this group, it's like the president just has never stopped campaigning. They said when he won his role in the U.S. Senate, when he first became a U.S. Senator, shortly thereafter he began his campaign for president, which was successful. And then they said during the first term, he spent much of the time campaigning. And now he's won a second term. And now the campaign apparatus just never shuts down, Chris. I mean, that's what this operation really is.
That is exactly right. And Jim Messina, the guy you showed there at the beginning, is in fact now going to take on other clients, in addition to the President of the United States, that share ideological or objective goals with the president, which means that now there's a backdoor for influence. There's all of these things that we can't trace. They're not limited. They're not regulated. We don't know anything about it. And if I can submit, this becomes ultimately a crutch for a president who we know struggles to make deals, to find bipartisan accord, to deal even with people in his own party. This allows him to keep his blinders on, stay out on the campaign trail, and continue to allow Washington to fall like a Plinko chip through the board, careening from one crisis to another crisis without ever sitting down and doing the deal, because he thinks he can campaign his way through it.
But he comes out and says, or the Jim Messina, you know, he ran Barack Obama's campaign. Now he's running this group. Here he is. He comes out and says, look, this is going to be an independent organization. You know, it's not directly tied to the White House or President Obama. And I am not a lobbyist, and I'm not going to be a lobbyist. and why? So for those of us outside of the Beltway, why are they so insistent that we know he's not a lobbyist? What is that supposed to mean to us?
Well, look, if you had, and I'm not speaking about Mr. Messina here, but if the FBI said, we're going to have a bank robber registry, so everybody who plans to rob a bank, please come in and register as a bank robber, you wouldn't have very many people who were successful bank robbers coming in to register. The truth about registering as a lobbyist, it means that you aren't that influential. What it means is that you're somebody who goes up to Capitol Hill and grinds out day in and day out the minutia of legislation about power lines or jellyfish or whatever it is that you do and your association does. The people who wield real influence in Washington, the people who really sell influence in Washington, would never dream of registering as a lobbyist because everybody would know what they were doing.
So it's basically irrelevant to us. It's a straw man defense because no one was accusing him of being a lobbyist, and that's irrelevant to the debate. All right, Chris, thank you.
You bet.